Hi class, in lesson 3.3 we will be dividing a whole into fractional parts. Learning targets for today: we will create equal parts of a whole, determine if fractions are equal, and graph fractions on a number line. Some key vocabulary terms to look for today are unit fraction and equivalent fractions. Let's take a look at problem 1 on page 130, newspaper column preparation. It says that you signed up to participate in the school newspaper club. During the first meeting, faculty advisors Miss Foster and Miss Shu showed everyone copies of last year's publication of the Rocket. The teachers have already planned out the sections for this year's Rocket. Matthew volunteered to create the Random Acts of Kindness section. The section will appear along the right side of the paper's back page. The newspaper is printed on 8.5 by 11-inch paper. Matthew plans to put a box in each homeroom and ask students to nominate classmates for the monthly recognition of random kindness acts. Students must tell what nice act their nominee performed on a nomination slip. In preparation for completing his section, help Matthew plan the layout of the column. Do not worry about the top or bottom margin of the page. What you will be doing with your group members for numbers 1 through 8 is cutting out paper strips in order to represent different fraction amounts. So if we take a look at number 1, you are going to be cutting the 8 strips of paper that are on page 137 and 139, and then follow the steps as far as how you need to label each one. You can see that for number 1, you're not going to be folding the first strip at all. You are going to be labeling it as a whole. You can see that for number 2, you are going to be taking one of the paper strips, then folding it carefully in half, and then you are going to be labeling each part of that whole with the appropriate fraction. So you can see the example that it has here for you, 1/2 and 1/2 for number 2. So with your group members, go ahead and get all of the paper strips that you have cut out folded into the appropriate fractions. If we take a look at page 131, back on the previous page, number 1, we had our strip that was representing one whole. Number 2, our strip was representing halves. For number 3, we have the strip that you made representing fourths. For number 4, you should have it divided into eighths. For number 5, sixteenths. And for number 6, you should have it broken up into thirds. For number 7, you should have it broken up into sixths, and for number 8, you should have it broken up into twelfths. Let's take a look at the top of page 132. I want you now to arrange your strips in a column so that all of the left edges are lined up and the strips are ordered from the strip with the smallest parts to the strip with the largest parts. And now answer number 9 with your group members. As the number of students who can be recognized in the column increases, describe what happens to the space for each student. If we take a look at number 9, as the number of students increase, the space for each student is going to decrease. Whenever we have a denominator for a fraction that is going to continue to get larger, that means that the fraction is going to be smaller. A unit fraction is a fraction that has a numerator of 1 and a denominator that is a positive integer. To finish up this page 132, go ahead and answer number 10 and 11 with your group members. If you take a look at the teacher helper on the right, he is reminding you that to list a set in ascending order means to list the set from least to greatest. If we would say descending, then we would be going from greatest to least. So hopefully that helped you out when you were answering number 10. If you are going to list the unit fractions in ascending order, then for number 10, you should have 1/16, 1/12, 1/8, 1/6, 1/4, 1/3, and 1/2. For number 11, the denominator of the unit fraction is going to tell you how many parts the whole is divided into. At the top of page 133, it says that if you folded the paper strips carefully, you will notice that some of the folds line up with each other. Fractions that represent the same part-to-whole relationship are equivalent fractions. Let's skip down to number 13. and it says that we are going to make a collection of equivalent fractions using your fraction strips, and then we are going to complete the graphic organizer on the next page by writing all of the equivalent fractions for each. All of the equivalent fractions that you should have for 1/2 are 2/4, 3/6, 4/8, 6/12, and 8/16. The equivalent fractions for 2/3 will be 4/6, and 8/12. The equivalent fractions for 3/4 would be 6/8, 9/12, and 12/16. And all of the equivalent fractions for 1 whole would be 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, 6/6, 8/8, 12/12, and 16/16. That is going to do it for lesson 3.3 on dividing a whole into fractional parts. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.